Hello everybody and welcome to Azumi Game Devlog Devtober Year 2 back in the saddle. It's been a whole fucking year since development of Azumi Game started. Well, technically, it'll be a year in 9 days. If according to the upload of the first devlog all the way back last year was October 11th. So we're just shy of 1 year of development on Azumi Game. Pretty fucking crazy. Not as far as I would like to be, considering half this last 12 months has been basically dead because of debilitating injury. But we're back, taking another shot at Devtober once again. So I wanted to kind of show everybody what has happened with Devtober so far and talk about the goals for Devtober and the potential pitfalls that will be making said goals more challenging than they otherwise may be. So let's get that out of the way first. My goal for Devtober this year is to have a final demo of Azumi Game. There are a couple key features that I want to implement into the game over the course of this month, and that are a boss fight, a basic mini level, as well as updating a lot of the key visuals and stuff in the game, because Azumi's design has changed slightly, and so the cutscenes don't reflect her current design. Like her face pattern changed, some proportions have been adjusted a little bit, so I want to update visuals for that. I want to add a boss fight, I want to add a level to make the demo a bit more representative of the game as a whole. I also will be revealing the name of the full Azumi game if we can get all this stuff done. What's pretty cool is that for Devtober this year, I have a couple people helping me out. So I have a Discord server, and everybody's in there. We're kind of chipping away at stuff. I got some people helping with modeling and texturing, and then of course I got Adar and Sixten helping out with the audio as per the norm. So I'm not going it 100% alone this time, so that's exciting. What's not as exciting is that I'm still fucking crippled. I still have a very bad disc herniation that makes walking and even sitting here right now talking to you very difficult. So surgery is coming the end of October, the 23rd. So I don't know how the surgery and the follow-up recovery is going to affect Devtober progress. I already lost a day yesterday because the pain was just too bad and I could barely do any work. But I did a little bit. Today was much more manageable and I got a lot more done. So that's what I'm going to share today. I started working on the boss battle. I wanted to start building some of the initial infrastructure for the boss's logic and its state machine and things like that. I have placeholder visuals for him right now. He's in the test area where I do all of my development in a non-destructive manner, so nothing in the actual game that's completed is able to be fucked up, which is I found a very, very helpful way to work, which is great. But you can see some placeholder visuals from right now. I got somebody working with me to texture him, just to save me a little bit of time. So the final sprites will be much more detailed and better looking than this. But this is just to kind of start building some infrastructure. You can see I have a couple hitboxes to give a basic kind of estimation of where his shape is for collisions and stuff like that. This was actually, I guess, it's an interesting place to start. Getting this set up was kind of tricky because all the other objects in the game use a single hitbox. Azumi has a single hitbox, and then all the enemies, they actually don't have hitboxes at all. They just use collision shapes for the actual sprite. But I wanted to do something a little bit more complicated here with the boss. So he has 3 hitboxes. The main one here, one for the head, and one for part of the tail. I wanted to leave a little bit of room here just because, I don't know, give it a little bit of extra flexibility. You can see the coverage isn't perfect, but I wanted to keep the squares because they're the quickest to calculate. And from my experimentation, it's good enough for the purposes of this game. So there's actually a 4th hitbox that's laid on top of this main one, and that's the main controller. So the way this is all set up is that I wanted to make sure that as the character, the boss, animates, the hitboxes stay in place. Because with Azumi, her hitbox doesn't move ever. It pins to one place, the sprite stays on top of it, and for Azumi, that's pretty okay. She's so small and her limbs are so tiny that all of her movements, her hitbox stays pretty much the same. But this boss is much more dynamic in terms of shape. He has limbs, long tail, long neck. So keeping the hitboxes like this as it animated it around didn't really make much sense. So what I did, if we go into the events here, all the way at the top, on the start of layout, we have a boss controller. This is where the main collisions and the platform behavior and everything is on. And then at the beginning, it pins the sprite to that. So as you move the controller, which contains the platform element, which will control movement and things like that, the sprite follows along. And then every tick, I have all those other hitboxes, the head, body, and tail, mapped to anchor points on that sprite that's following the controller. So there's like a couple different levels. We have the main controller doing all the heavy lifting, the actual visual, the sprite follows it along, and then this sprite, if we open it up, you can see in here, it has 3 anchor points: the body anchor point, the head anchor point, and the tail anchor point. And so in each of these test animations, I move these anchor points to represent how the sprite is animating. And so these are just obviously placeholders. They'll be more complicated to set up as their actual frames of animation in the final version, but I just wanted to have something to test right now. And so every time the animation changes, the hitboxes update to follow these image points. So that means that the collisions stay pretty consistent. So we can show that off in just a second. Because there's more to that boss behavior than just that. That controls collision and basic movements. I also have 2 new functions here. One is just a hit function for the boss. He isn't in the enemies family because I didn't want to inherit a lot of the functions of the normal enemies. I wanted to have separate logic just for the boss, so I created a new family or class for the boss, and it has its own hit function that functions a little differently. It actually has blink damage. Not blink damage isn't the right term for it. When Azumi gets hit, she gets knocked back, and there's some blinking. You get a couple seconds of invulnerability. The boss has the same thing, so you can't just like mash on him and do like tons of damage and kill him really quickly. Each hit gives him a couple frames of invulnerability and recovery, just like you have. So you gotta think a little bit smarter. So by giving him his own class and his own hit function, I was able to do that. Another thing we have here is a state transition. So I built an entirely new state machine to control the AI for the boss, and it works better than Azumi's. I might go back and redo Azumi's to work like this, because Azumi's state machine is very, very basic. I just had a string value that controlled the state. So you can see when the state equals dodge, it does the dodge thing, and that's how it worked. So all these states run at the same time, which uses a lot more resources than the state machine on this boss, because all these groups that are the states are all active, and they're checking constantly to see if the state value equals what they are, so the rest of the controls activate. Works, but not very efficient. So for the boss, I changed it. And so what the boss does is that it starts in the default state, and these are in groups, and only this group is active. All his other states are inactive, so they're not running. And so when it goes into another state, it calls the transition function. And you can see the 2 parameters are the previous state, which is the one you're in right now, and the next state, the one you're transitioning into. So it'll deactivate the state you're in and activate the next one. So this means they're not all running at the same time. They're not taking up any, CPU cycles or anything like that. Only the state you're actually in is using system resources. So this is more efficient. For a simple game like this, it's not gonna fucking be a big deal, but it's better practice, I suppose. It's more efficient, and it's just kind of cooler. So what it does is I have a default state, a movement state, and then a couple attack states. There will be more, but I just wanted to have a couple to make sure that the actual thing works. So this function up here changes the state. And in the default state, which is the first one, it basically sets the animation to idle, and then I have an attack choice local variable. And so it'll choose from all the other states and then call this transition and will move to that state at random. So it chooses one of these states at random, the movement or one of the two attacks, and then we'll transition into it. And then you go into here, it activates this group, it does the attack, and then it will call that transition again and go back to default. So it's a cycle, but it's random. So it gives it a semblance of artificial intelligence very simplistically. It just chooses randomly from the different possible states, so you kind of have to learn the patterns for each attack. Now, this is all very simple. It doesn't work very well yet, because I just started doing it today, and I don't have any final assets. But if we go into here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhide the hitboxes so you can see how they move when the boss animates. So if I go into here and select all these, have them be initially visible. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna run this really quick. You can see how it works. There we go. So you can see how the hitboxes move as he animates. And so he's just choosing from those different things. He has a little charge attack. He has just movement. And then there's also a beam. And you can see the problem I have. The beam doesn't flip when he changes sides. And I don't know why. I spent like a couple hours trying to debug it, and it didn't work. But you can see when I hit him, he blinks, and I can't hit him until he stops blinking. So he has some invulnerability frames, and he has 20 HP currently. So, yeah. This is the beginning of the boss fight. And he can kick your ass pretty easily if you're not careful. So I'm still working on balance and stuff like that. But, I mean, it works. The state machine works pretty well. And I think the potential here for a fun boss fight is good. And I'm looking forward to it. So, you can see that fucking beam killed me because it's weird. So, the only other thing that he does right now is, where is it? Yeah, it just checks the X value and will flip the sprite to face you, depending on what side of the screen you're on. But it only does that in the default state, so you can dodge attacks. He's not going to immediately snap to follow you no matter what he's doing. Only in the default state he flips. So if you can dodge through him, you can get a hit in while he's facing the wrong way. So, timing, animation, and just everything needs to be adjusted, but the whole point today was trying to get the basic skeleton of the state machine and the AI working, and I did it. It all works, just doesn't work very well. But it was a proof of concept, because I hadn't tried building something like this before. But I wanted to make a more efficient state machine that could be used for a boss fight, and it seems to be working so far. Other than that, I did some basic bug fixing yesterday. I have a spreadsheet. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I broke everything down into bug fixing, boss fight, level, and then redo the cutscenes and stuff. And they're in order of importance. So bug fixes were the most important, boss battles are next, then the level, then the cinematics. So if nothing else, I want to get the bug fixes and the boss battle done by the end of Devtober. Hopefully also have the level and can get the new cinematics done. But, you know, as long as the boss is there, that's really the most important part to me, because I think that'll be the most fun part. But that's Devtober so far. I'm going to keep tweaking this. Hopefully I'll get some better visuals for the boss and make the beam look better and figure out why it won't flip for some reason. I spent like 2 hours trying to figure that out, and I still have no way of doing it, which is annoying. But yeah, that's where we're at. I will try and update every day or every other day, really depending. Like I said, it really depends on how my back and my spine and my leg are doing, because like yesterday I wanted to do an update showing the bug fixes, but I was just like crippled in bed all day, and I slept for almost 12 hours, which was not fun. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna do my best to keep working on the game and having it be an even better state than it was last year. But thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in for more Devtober, and I'll hopefully have a kick-ass product for you guys in the near future.